Hello, my name is Judit and I would like to welcome all of you who are here again to look at some great studies. And I have a very special guest to introduce shortly, who is an international master over the board chess, but grandmaster in composing. He has incredible things. He's extremely unique as during his career of 55 years, he was playing competitive chess, but at the same time composing parallel. So he's very unique and special. So please welcome Yochanan Afek here from Israel, but he stays and lives in Holland for quite some time already. Hello.
Hi, hello.
Well, you were one of the exceptionally famous and good composers who took part, and I'm very happy for this, at the Chess Artistry Competition, which is part of the Global Chess Festival of 2021. And I specially designed this event in memory of Paul Benko, who was a good friend and a coach of me also. So this is very special for me that you and also many of the greatest composers were sending in their fantastic compositions, and we nearly got received 50 of them, and one is nicer than the other one. So I would like to ask you that this exact uh, composition which you're going to be showing, you were doing together with Aaron Kochler, and how someone is doing compositions when you're teaming up with someone.
There is more than one way to do it. I remember when I was young in the youth center of Tel Aviv, there were other people interested in composing, other juniors like me, because we were studying chess with the famous Israeli champion Moshe Cherniak. He was our mentor in chess, and he always used to, in every meeting, every lesson, he used to show some endgame studies, especially miniatures, and many of us were attracted to it. So in those days, we tried to compose while in the club meetings, like sitting with each other and exchanging ideas, getting enthusiastic about the partner's idea during the meeting in the club, because the meeting in the club was not only the lessons, but it was also just a club, and I'm doing it sometimes, but my regular partners are living in Israel, so I'm more doing it via email. We are exchanging ideas via emails. They have their own basic ideas usually, and I try to develop it, and then I send it to them, and they give their own opinion and additional content, and that's how it's built up usually. Yeah, and I think most joint studies are composed this way, by exchanging ideas and just trying to improve the basic scheme to a final worthy product. Yeah.
And this study, did you start it out of scratch when we were sending the invitation out and inviting people to this competition in beginning of May, or you had this idea already beforehand?
I we had this. I had this. We had this because I have a partner to this creation. He's not a He's not a kind of professional composer, but he's more of a chess player. That sometimes and that happens quite often with players, that while they are analyzing, even strong players, I get from grandmasters sometimes ideas they have seen during their analysis of over the board games, either their own games or they analyze it for periodicals, for the informant. So they get this idea. They are getting enthusiastic, but not always the ideas are study like ideas. They are accurate maneuvers, and but for having it an idea for a study, it has to involve some paradox, something unusual. Not only a collection of accurate moves and only moves, also it has to have something original, some idea that one way or another refutes the basic principle of chess, and that's what makes it kind of artistic and surprising. And if we refer to this study, I had a preliminary idea from a Dutch player, a master called Aran Köhler, whom I know for many years, even before I came to live here. And he just was analyzing a position from, even not from his game, but somebody else's game, and came to and found out himself, and by the help of the engines, some quite interesting and fascinating ideas. And I took it as a basic scheme for creating this study. I would like to add that it was important for me to take part in this event because I knew Pal Benko personally. I met him a couple of times. He was a great composer, a great player, which is well known that he was a world leading player. And I also took part earlier in his both 80th and 90th birthday composing, special composing tourneys. Even my studies were awarded. I wanted to keep the tradition like this, and I was happy that a memorial tourney was organized for him as deserved, and a successful one with a very good organizer and a very good arbiter. It's called judge in chess composition. It was a very good judge like John Nunn, and I'm glad that it was found worthy for awarding in the final award of the judge.
Absolutely, as John Nunn, the judge, was awarding it to the third prize. And I also like it very much because of its uniqueness for different reasons, and we're going to talk about this, but also because it's a very much a position which can happen any day. It can stand on the board for amateurs or for world championship match even. But before we go to the chessboard, can you tell me that what is it that really keeps you going for 55 years of creating and composing studies of your own alone or joining with the others? What is the flow? Why do you have this passion? What keeps you moving and going and creating further and further?
So in general, I have a passion for chess because in the last 55 years, it was my main and perhaps the only profession. And I have been doing things in all facets of chess, organizing also, and training at all levels, and mainly writing chess books and chess articles, numerous of them. And I found out, and other people found out, that I'm especially excelling in composing from all those facets in chess. Composing tend to be my strongest one, and when you are good in something, then you have the motivation and the passion to keep on doing it. This is my way to express my chess feelings and my chess ideas, and I'm glad that it is still there, and hope for many more years to do that.
Well, I also do hope because many of your studies, which I've seen, they are so much, it's very pure, clean. The ideas are really implemented in such a perfectionist way that it just for everybody, it's so clear and understandable not necessarily long even, but the patterns and the ideas behind it, it's just nice to understand it and explain it. So let's get out the chessboard and see this third prize of your collaboration with Aaron Kochler. And in this position, we can say that white should be much better, and white is close to winning in principle if we talk about material, because a bishop and three pawns many times should be winning in an endgame, especially when you have your pawns on a6 and on c6. But in this position, it seems that black might be just controlling those pawns with the king, and black will be able to gain one of the pawns possibly by playing rook a3, for example. So let's see how it starts in this position. Bishop g4 check. Right now, black has two alternatives, right? Because black has to be careful seeing, has to have three eyes, right? The c pawn, the a pawn, and the g pawn is wants to queen eventually. So let's see the first alternative if black goes to king c7. And the idea is behind bishop g4 to regroup the bishop to d7 and to defend the pawn from the back to c6. And somehow the very simple idea is to play g4, g5, g6, and queen the pawn until the black rook is busy to capturing the a pawn. So how would it go? Rook g3 stops for the moment the g pawn, right? But there is another one going on a7. So there is something to sacrifice. Black has to stop from queening the a pawn. After that, g4 takes g5, and practically black just simply cannot stop the pawn push, and the game will be over. The reason is because, just to show it for a little further, after rook h1, king g6, rook g1, white goes either h6 or f6, and after that, again, a very nice way. Well, I don't know if we can call this a switchback, but definitely covers the rook power, and the g8 queen is queening next.
It's
Okay, so this was
absolutely.
the first. It
No, I
is a
just said that
switchback, right?
it is a switchback. Yeah.
Okay, so let's see how black can try to hold the game and resist more. So black goes to king to d8, getting a little bit closer to the g file. After this, white continues bishop d7. Obviously, if someone found bishop g4, he's going to go bishop d7 because it's just stabilizing the situation. Still, c6 pawn is not going to be attacked. And of course, white's aim is still the same, somehow to queen the g pawn. But of course, black is not going to be ignoring this. So he's going to go rook g3, a7, rook a3, and we're going to see shortly what is the difference between the king standing on d8 instead of having it on c8, c7 before. Rook a7, g5. Right now, the king already can go nearer by playing king e7, which will be the main line. But let's see what other options there are in this position. For example, if black goes rook a5, then very interesting that g6, for example, would be a draw immediately because there is a saving idea by black giving a check. And now we see the idea behind king d8 that he can stop all the actions by white by playing king e7, and somehow the white king is stuck, and also the c pawn cannot be pushed because then the d7 bishop is under attack. So this is actually already a very nice practical idea which can happen, right? But let's see what happens if there is an other way. So after rook a5, g6 was a draw, but there is this very finesse move, king h6, just not pushing the pawn yet, but coming back with the king to h6, covering the h5 square. So in the next move already, white will be able to be pushing his pawn. And this g pawn and the c pawn together will be not possible for black to be stopped. But let's see if after g5, so he switches the moves and he goes king e7 immediately. Right now, white has to obviously continue g6. I'm sorry. Sorry. No, no, no. King e7, white goes g6, rook a1. So black is trying to make a draw by if white would be going g7, then black goes rook h1, I think, king g6, rook g1, king h6, and I believe king f7. Is that correct?
Yes,
No,
yes.
you give it check first, and only after king g5, black would be going king f7, capturing the pawn on c7, and after g7, and after c7, black can go rook c1. So both pawns will be lost, and well, black is just sacrificing his rook for the pawn. So this is not possible, but then we may ask ourselves that after all, is it a draw? So I would ask you, Yohanan, that can you please explain what kind of typical, or not typical, but special themes are visualized and implemented into this study?
Yeah, so in addition to the normal chess tactical and strategical motives that we can recognize here, every player can recognize, there are also two themes more specific to the art of chess composition, not only to endgame studies, but also to mate problems. And one of them is the full march of the pawn from the initial square G2 all the tough way to the promotion on the eighth rank. This theme is called is first shown was first introduced by the famous American composer Samuel Lloyd in the 19th century, end of 19th century. He created the first problem, mate in five problem, that showed this maneuver, uh, a maneuver that is being played almost one move after the other, and is called. He called it Excelsior. Excelsior. He called it as the name of a famous poem of the American poet Longfellow. As Excelsior is an old word in English that means ever higher. So the pawn goes ever higher despite all the difficulties on its way, all the way to promotion. And all this journey, this courageous journey is called Excelsior. It is something that is pretty special because of the technical problems, but it has become a common theme. The other theme we see here is carried out, is played on the board by the bishop. The bishop is creating the maneuver bishop from f3, the initial square of the bishop, to g4, and then to d7, both to protect the pawn on c6 and also protect the bishop itself. And then later in the solution, this bishop, as we will see soon, is going back to g4 and then to f3, and rounding up the maneuver, which is called Rundlauf. The German term is the term in the terminology of chess composition. It means a round trip from f3 through g4 to d7 and back to g4 and f3, and then continues to some other destinations, as we are going to see.
Okay, so this is quite a special theme, I think, really, this round trip, and I like it very much. I didn't know it before that this exists. Black goes rook h1. Now again, white can make a mistake. And the next move is, to tell you the truth, is very natural, right? Because white wants to be queening his pawn as fast as possible. So this is the reason why white goes king g8, because if king g7, then black would be going rook c1, and if white would be going back to repeat and then win the game, already it would be not possible because of rook c4. But we are going to see similar defense against king g8, but it's not going to be a real defense anymore. Because right now there are several options for black to defend. So let's see first what happens if rook c1 is played anyway. Then white is going to be playing g7, and after rook c4 trying to push away the bishop, white can play c7, and after taking, again white has to be very precise by playing king h8, and in the next move nothing can stop white from queening on g8. So this was the idea if rook c1, but king d6 is the main move in this position. So let's see how it goes all the way with white towards the winning idea. So white goes g7 now, and black cannot take the c6 pawn because white can simply go bishop f3, check the rook. This is why black plays rook g1, immediately starts to chase the bishop, which, as you pointed out before, is not protected anymore. So white has to look for some kind of shelter or some kind of opportunity to put it in safety, and only after that to focus to queen one of the pawns. And it's also very important to protect the c6 pawn right now. This is why the round trip is completed by playing bishop f3. But the bishop is not protected, so black is going to be continuing to chase the bishop, right, on f3 by rook g3. And right now, again, white has to play the only winning move. And to tell you the truth, it's not obvious to me at all, because you may think that, okay, what's the difference between going bishop d5, bishop e4, or bishop h1? And there is a huge difference, because the only winning move is bishop e4, as after bishop d5, black goes king e7, and let's see why is it a difference between the bishop standing. So the winning move is bishop e4. Let's see, rook g4. And right now there is another exceptionally important move. So bishop is going one at a time continuously, and now white goes bishop d5, sacrifices the bishop and supporting its g7 pawn. So right now if black would take on d5, then white is already going c7, and after rook c4, white's only move again, only king f8 wins, because if white goes king h8, then black is not going to capture it, but playing check first, and then white has to be going back again. So this would be only a repetition, and white cannot go to the 7th rank with the king, because after rook c7, it would be taking the g7 pawn. So this is why king f8 is the only winning move. And after rook c7, right now g8, queens with a check, which is so important, right? Because if it wouldn't be check, then rook c8 would win the queen and it would be a draw. So after bishop d5, king d5 was not possible, so black is trying to get closer again back to the pawn to go to e7. But now already white can come out with his king. The final phase of the study is going to be accomplished now. Black must go give it check, king g6, rook g4, king h6, trying to come after a check on h4. White would be just moving back with his king. But there is still some small hope for black by playing king f6, right? And this is also, probably it has a special name, that in this study we have few different kind of promotion. We just seen the previous one where it was a check by making a queen, but right now it will be also a check because queen is not possible because rook h4 mate. This is why the key move is g8 knight, and after king e5, white is already ready to push the pawn and win the game. It's a 17 move pair of moves study, which is quite amazing. How was it for you that you really from the beginning until the end, what is the feeling when you feel that it's done? This, there is nothing to prove on that.
Uh, First of all, I would like to mention the format of this study is called miniature. Miniature is a position in any chess composition genre with not more than 7 pieces on the board. And it is a kind of the magic number. 7 pieces is not too little to create interesting and special ideas, and not too much from the material point of view. So this is a miniature that, as the judge John Nunn mentioned in his commentary, that it contains much content for such a little material. And that is also where the limit is. The limit is that with so little material, I have the I had the feeling, based on 55 years of experience, that it is done. It is, if I'm not wrong, it is 17 moves, 16 or 17 moves. The solution is long enough, and so many ideas and sub ideas are included. The switchback, the Rundlauf, the Excelsior, and the under promotion. And on top of that, the Excelsior is shown in two ways, in two different promotion: the promotion of a queen, the queening, and the under promotion of an knight. So what else can you hope for? Quite sufficient content is involved. And of course, the great battle between the bishop and the rook, and the weak pawns. And also the kings, both kings have a big role. So if all this has been achieved, I and my partner felt quite satisfied with the outcome.
Were you expecting that it's going to be or it should be in the top three?
You can never tell, because I had no idea what the others were, and I only wanted to be included in the award somewhere, even if a commendation or an honorable mention, which uh, which is already an honor to, in such a great company, in memory of such a great composer, to be in the award and not be forgotten outside the award. The third prize was a very pleasant surprise for us.
Well, what I can say is that I'm very happy that there were so many great composers taking part in this competition, including yourself. That those studies, I feel that I have to share it with others. This is why we are doing this series, also to make people understand better the studies, understand why they are great, what pleasure it can give, and to understand more the nuances, the details, the perfection of chess, the art of chess, and so that there are so many ideas still to be discovered. And I do hope that you and your partner will still do in the next few years and the years to come. And I hope you're going to be taking part in our future events if we're going to be organizing. So thank you very much and congratulations.
And thank you very much, and thanks to all spectators as well.
Thank you very much for watching us and solve studies and compose studies. See you later.